With that one. Or are we short one?
Oh, you know what? Yeah.
Omnidirectional.
All right, I will call the meeting to order at 6:03 PM. And we will have the flag salute led this evening by Madeline Schick, who is a student from Fallbrook STEM Academy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Oh my gosh. And the president.
Yeah, she's great. Put her in charge of all of us.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, so we will move to item 3, the approval to minutes of the February 6, 2023 regular meeting. It is recommended the governing board approve the minutes of the February 6th, 2022, sorry, not 23 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
You have a public comment on.
Okay, and we have a public comment.
Over a year ago, FUESD issued a $300,000 facility. It was postponed due to COVID. A few months ago, the board held a completion of the report, which included data about FUESD quality of some of the neighboring districts. Reports from the this board's approval of the took place at the last meeting prior to receiving the report. As a result, the board voted on this issue and it should be rescinded. There are many related ways to require the answer. Before voting on this proposal, were you aware of this? This is on you and Mr. Dollar, not the office from the report. They shared it in the recent public high school board meeting, the superintendent stated that she should be and then she would agree that the program of the college is the best for the bunch. What would be in the church? What other schools and boundaries of areas provided the bargaining chips among the districts in the development? Shouldn't this topic receive more attention before the board vote after little or no opportunity? Why did this proposal need to be decided so quickly? The situation did not make decided in the for approval. Picture the day the Citro sales agent counts this time into the ground. Future home, Citro ownership. It might work just to review this time and help us. Now imagine the huge line of I can almost remember. I was told that I could transfer from history. Of course, my kids can really history out of when the needs go down the line. I don't think we'll be able to fight or walk. All the way forward. This is a hypothetical, but very likely. Yes. For all these reasons, I'm requesting the resolution of the technical board earlier vote concluded should be rescinded. According to Robert's rules of order, the challenge is for to examine the legal and procedural details of this opportunity to be considered for the Previous. And then,
Thank you. That's it for the minutes.
But we need a motion. I move that we accept the minutes for the February 6th regular meeting of the board.
Lynn, I second the motion. Ms. McBride. Any questions, discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Lundin?
Aye.
Mr. Favela?
Aye.
Ms. McBride? And I will vote aye as well, so the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving to the community relations section. Item number 1, hearing session. This is the portion of our meeting designated for comments from the public about matters not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Should individuals wish to comment on items on the present agenda, they may do so during this portion of the meeting or at any time the item is considered by the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 20 minutes allocated for a particular item or topic. While the Brown Act allows the board to hear issues within its jurisdiction from the public that are not on the agenda, it only allows the board to respond in a very limited manner, such as providing direction to staff. If the board were to have more than this type of brief discussion on an item not on the agenda, it could be a violation of the Brown Act's rules for posting the agenda. To address the governing board, please submit to the clerk of the board a completed speaker card prior to the start of the open session portion of the meeting. And Mr. Favela, I know we do have cards. Thank you so much.
Sure, we do have cards and they're for an agenda item. Regarding the superintendent search. We can hold until that comes up. But folks have the option to speak now as well, or you can speak when that comes up. We have another one for agenda item number 7. So one for item number 3, item number 7. What's her name? Search firm, is that related to the
We have that.
so superintendent search is item number 3.
Another one for the public comment. Filled out 3 cards.
I have a card, but
I was told you were getting. And this is one of the reasons I'm here tonight. I'm sure I'm a good representation of a lot of community members. As you guys know, I have a business that I can't get away from until 5:30. That's when I close. And, you know, especially with rain and stuff, I'm rushing to get here and give you cards if I want to speak. And so I did look on your website, and last I saw, and I brought this up a couple of meetings ago and I never got an answer. And so I'd like an answer. And just so you know, in the future, unless I request differently, I love the answers to be to the public.
Contact information so that we.
Yeah. And I do that on purpose. So I was going to say that. The reason I do that is because I feel like a lot of my questions, the public would like to also know the answer. If I want it private, I'll definitely give you my phone number or my email. But the one I'm talking about right now is, I noticed on the website, the school board meetings are no longer allowing for remote public comments. And I would like you guys to put that on the agenda to vote to allow for remote public comments like you did through COVID. Just because we're not in a pandemic doesn't mean we can't use technology. And the spirit behind having public meetings is to hear from the community and make you guys as available as possible for us to comment. And there's a lot of parents out there like me who have childcare issues and can't get here, or because of work and traffic, we can't get here in time to get you the cards. But we can sign up online and pick up our phone and talk to you. So that's what I was asking for. And if you will get back to the public next month,
I don't know if you need to take a vote, put it on the agenda, take a vote, and let us know if you allow for that. And then I wasn't sure, it looked like you weren't allowing for written comments either, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Are you allowing for written comments to agenda items if people want to speak and then you guys read it aloud? Is that something you're allowing for?
Be here in person to submit the card.
Okay, so that's what I want you guys to change. I want people to be able to write in, and I also want them to be able to communicate virtually. I can tell you, I've been to other board meetings in the community, like the Fallbrook Planning Group. And I know from other parents at other school boards that they allow for virtual comment. So it's the times. And again, you look at the spirit behind having public meetings. It's to engage with the public, hear from the public, and you're disenfranchising people who work, regular business hours and can't get to you or have childcare issues. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said before, the rest of the cards are for the search item. Number 3.
Okay, so we will move to reports from the board. Ms. McBride, if you would like to start.
Well, on the taking training, I did an online training course that was very interesting and very informative. And I'm such a writer that I even made the drawings that they were having on there, because I'm just silly that way, but I enjoyed it very much, all that there was for our training. And then we did a bus tour to visit some of the schools just a few days ago. And I was very amazed of the schools, we didn't just see both schools on the base, we got to see one. Just so much advanced, I don't know how else to put it. The school was very, very advanced. Even the kindergarten area had their own little courtyard, and the setting was just amazing. The way that the kids would get their lunches was very well organized, and just lend itself so that the kids could do it, even the little tiny ones, by themselves and serve their own little plates. So that's about it for me. Just enjoyed that very much.
Right, Mr. McFarland.
Sure, I was able to attend the school site visit in the morning. Thank you for putting that together, Cindy. And thank you to all the staff that joined us. It was quite a bus ride. Heading out to San Onofre. But really glad to see so many staff available on a week that everybody was off, coming out to orient, or give us an orientation to the schools. One thing that I had not done before was visit the child nutrition office. So I was really looking forward to that. And we had a great lunch, a salad, and some pizza that was baked right there on the spot. Shout out to Brooke, the cook. It was great. I wish I could have stayed for the rest of it, but thank you for making that happen. Looking forward to more visits.
Ms. Lundeen.
Well, when I first got the invitation that was sent out to the whole board for the day that you had put together, I was so jealous because I knew I was going to be out of town on vacation, and Hawaii was just too long a commute to come. But it just sounded fantastic. And again, I would echo what you said, Mr. Favela, the fact that this was done when staff essentially had the whole week off really speaks to how dedicated our staff is and how fine they can be with their time. So I look forward to the next one. I know we've got a series of visits coming up and they're all on my calendar. Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you. And Ms. Sabal.
I actually did some board training with CSBA and learned quite a bit of information on the governance and the Brown Act. And then I also, we did the district reclassification celebration. That was wonderful. That was excellent. There were so many
proud children up there, and the parents were just as proud. It was like really heartwarming to see it.
And I also went on the trip. We anticipated it being short getting there and we were on the bus for 2.5 hours, I think it was. So I do not stop for bathroom, just so you know. We didn't get to do that either. But it was lovely. We got to see several sites. They were very welcoming. Everybody did a fantastic job in scheduling that for us, which we really appreciated because it was their time off as well. I will also share in a couple of weeks, I will be up in Sacramento and I will be looking at some laws with the legislatures up there to see what's happening in education, to bring back to you how we can better support students and perhaps get more funding and things like that. And then I will be in Los Angeles the week after that, there's been the weekends, finding out about the 2000 possible laws that are coming down the pipe that I mentioned last time. Hopefully it'll be shortened down to maybe just a few hundred, because 2000 is a lot for us to go through. But it's going to be a very, very busy March, and I hope to have a lot of information to be able to share with you at the next meeting with some of those things. And hopefully they'll be really productive. I think they will. And with that, I will turn it over to the report from the interim superintendent, Mrs. Martin.
Thank you, Dr. McCray. Good evening and good evening to the board. Yes, it was an absolute pleasure to take you on the bus. Couldn't control the traffic on the 5 freeway, but to take you to see some of our school sites and other facilities that perhaps you wouldn't see, as you said, Mr. Favela. And yes, it was the time for the staff to be off, but they were so happy about the interest that the board had that made it worth it. So we really do appreciate that, your interest and your support. Again, the reclassification ceremony was beautiful and I was proud to be a part of it and proud that the entire governance team was there to support those families. It was a really neat experience and just saw some really beautiful moments with families and the pride that these students, and surprised at how quickly some of them have been reclassified, because there were little kids that had been reclassified. So that was really amazing. And as I've shared, what I'm most excited about recently is the group that we're calling INFUESD, I-N, and then FUESD, our acronym. And this really is our Student Advisory Council. So you may have noticed that over to my right, we have 3 students from Fallbrook STEM who are joining us. They are on the INFUESD team, and we meet virtually with Mr. Fell and myself, rotating different sites. We're going to bring them to the board so they can participate and understand processes. And I think, as you saw with Madeline over here, great leaders at our schools. I don't know that when I was in 2nd grade, I would have been that confident or capable to stand up and lead the flag. So lead she did. So now I would like to introduce Josue Espinoza and Evelyn Vargas. And if you two want to go up to the podium over here. Also, thank you to Mrs. Arias and Mrs. Enriquez for being here as the principal and assistant principal for supporting them.
My name is Evelyn and I'm in 6th grade at Fallbrook STEM Academy. My name is Josue Espinoza and I'm in 5th grade at Fallbrook STEM Academy. We are here to introduce the district highlight video, which includes the following. La Paloma students recognized at the Rotary Club. Mayales Elementary hosting Fallbrook High School's Teatro en Hispano. The That's Science Magic Show after school program. Parent Participation Day at Mike Choate Center. Leadership Rally at Fallbrook STEM Academy. We hope you enjoy the video.
So I'd like to present these students with a certificate and allow them the opportunity to take a picture here with our board members. This is a special opportunity. These students were chosen by the administration at their school sites for their, not just leadership abilities, but what they'll bring as we make decisions on things. I've mentioned it before. This is my why. This is why I do what I do. This is why we all do what we do. So listening to how things affect them and what's important to them certainly factors into our decisions. So if you want to come up here, I'll give you that. And then after that, they can be dismissed. They don't need to stay with anybody unless they want to. Yep, they're, okay.
No.
Yeah.
That is the report from the interim superintendent.
That was awesome.
And like, so it's sticking with the hole, you can actually go.
No, I'm.
Which keeps us all in line.
So we're going to move on to item number 3, board operations, number 1, information superintendent search. And again, I will turn it over to Mrs. Martin.
Thank you. We had some people who wanted to speak on this agenda.
We do
item.
have comments here. Okay, so we'll first call up Judy Willis.
Give me a minute, but I wanted to speak after the presentation.
It's not how it works. Before.
It's just hard to comment when you haven't heard the presentation.
Okay. Before I get on started, I want to say, I saw the video last month. I watched it. You did a fabulous job. And I think you initiated it, and then Seth, is that right? Put it together. So thank you. That was really cool. And bring the students here. You guys are doing fabulous with that. And I love that as a board, you guys went and toured the schools. I don't know if you've done that in the past, but I'm a former teacher, and it means a lot that those who are making decisions on our behalf understand our students and get to know them personally as best as they can. And also talk to those of us who are on the field, because we often have great ideas and, it's a team partnership. From the teacher's perspective, I'm talking to you tonight as a parent though, so it's also a team perspective with that. And in honor of Black History Month, because you brought that up, I did want to share something, because as a former teacher, I always like to have my students learn about heroes in America that aren't well known, as Martin Luther King. We all get to know about him, which he is wonderful. But Prince Whipple was an African-American slave and later freedman. He was a soldier and a bodyguard during the American Revolution, and under his enslaver, General William Whipple of New Hampshire militia, he was granted freedom after the war. The reason I felt it was important to bring him up is because he was pinnacle in fighting, I'm trying to remember the battle, but anyways, a particular battle that helped us win our freedom. And I just thought he's a name that our children should learn about maybe someday. Now, moving on to the search. What I wanted to say is I looked through the recommendations that the lady last, Yolanda, shared from the San Diego Board or County of Education. And the process seemed one that possibly we could do without going with a search firm, at least initially. And, as you know, we just lost 400,000 from our last superintendent. So sometimes that's what search firms bring us, right? And if there's any way we can recoup, I know as a family, when I lose money, I might have to clip coupons or find ways to recuperate. So that being said, if there is any way we can not have to spend on a search firm or possibly go with a consultant instead of a whole firm that will be less expensive, more affordable for us, I just want to recommend that. Or looking into that at least. I know you all will make the best decision in the end. But also, I don't know if you guys probably haven't started on the criteria for superintendent, and it sounds as if you will talk to the community and let us weigh in on the things that, just to remind you, what are our values and why we elected you, and what we want for our children in a superintendent. And I believe I have minutes to speak. Okay, thank you. And then I lost my thought. So yeah, I just would like to know your criteria, have the community weigh in on the criteria, which it sounds like you're going to do. But one of the criteria I'd like to recommend first is instead of opening, if you do, whether you go do it on your own or with a consultant or a search firm, if you could start looking local. I think all of us, everybody I've heard speak, we want to know that whoever is our superintendent is truly invested in our schools and knows our families. And the more you can find somebody from Fallbrook who's already working in Fallbrook, if nobody qualified in that area, then maybe expand out to Riverside and San Diego, the better. But that would be my recommendation. Start off with an ad in Village News, on EdJoin, that's national, San Diego County newspaper and Riverside County newspaper, and have a secretary collect those resumes. You'll probably get 10 to 20 resumes that then as a board you guys can get together, and once you have your criteria developed, because if you open that process up for 6 to 8 weeks, you can be developing the criteria, and then by the 6th or the 7th and 8th week, review those resumes and discern which ones you want to actually interview, and maybe narrow it down to 5 or 6. And and if you want to have a select committee of teachers or community members to also help weigh in on that, then that's just some ideas I wanted to share with you about how to go about this process. But always remember that you guys are the ones in control, especially no matter who you hire, and our values, and just represent those, not necessarily those of a consultant or a firm. But yeah, if you'll start off with a consultant, one person might be more affordable than a search firm if you deem that it's not something you can do yourselves. So thank you very much.
You have another card, so.
I'm good. My next one is for the children.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Tyler Jeffrey.
Thank you. Good evening. First off, I'd like to lead off and just say I am so grateful for the service that you all bring to our community, where I genuinely believe that the school board is probably the most pivotal and central function that we can do to protect the sanctity of our community. And so I'm just really grateful to be able to address all of you. And so thank you for listening to me real quick. I'm here to really just address two main items. And I believe that I have countless other concerned parents in the community who stand behind me in a lot of this. And in fact, ironically, I'm going to maybe be echoing a lot of what this nice lady had actually recently said, in that, you know, I believe that one of the most critical things that you guys do as a board is pick a proper superintendent, right, to help guide our schooling. And so this is, I think, so valuable and important. I wanted to come here and address, I think, two main things. And that first off, actually kind of like this lady had mentioned, is that to asking the board or employing the board to reconsider launching out with using a search form. And here's why I bring that up, is that first off, I do believe that there's cost-saving benefits of potentially beginning locally, but more importantly too than that is that I moved to Fallbrook many years ago. I've been a long-term resident here because I recognize the unique charm and the bucolic beauty of this area, and understand that we have a very unique spirit, which also comes with it a very unique set of needs from the community. And so moving out to using search firms that I believe probably have done a lot of work, and I'll also come with also the pre-notions of what they believe is what makes a good superintendent, does not properly represent our unique values in this just blessed community. And so I implore the community, one, that to reconsider that, and that I believe that as a community, we understand the spirit and the nature of our community better. And so and on that, my request is, as a board, and maybe even just a question, is do we have a set of criteria ready for us to be able to even know about how we're going to vet these candidates to be able to merge or match with our community's unique needs? And I would ask that we would maybe have an opportunity where the board would present that criteria to the public for comment, as I believe there's a lot of well-meaning parents and concerned parents who would have, I think, a lot of great input to make sure that we are going about this search with the highest level of quality. So that's the one thing. The second thing I wanted to address is that as a long-term business owner, I have made many mistakes in my own efforts in hiring people. And so I thought I would maybe just share some of that with the board today. And that first and foremost, I bring up that, you know, I have found that academia or how high one ascends in academia with almost an inverse correlation to the success of that person in their work. In fact, even industry experience, in fact, I found was almost negative correlated, because they didn't have the openness of mind to be able to customize their approach. And then finally, oh, is that my time up? Oh, well, thank you very much for the time. God bless you guys.
Jennifer Montgomery.
Good evening, trustees. I was going to say good evening to the student leaders, but they've left. My name is Jennifer Montgomery. I've been here before. I'm a parent of 2 daughters at May Ellis Elementary School, including a future infused student leader. So I'm very excited for when she gets to nervously sit up there. I'm also a PTSA board member, a former PTSA president, and also an FUESD employee. All of us who are part of the FUESD community are anxious about the hiring of our next superintendent and hope that the search will be done thoughtfully and thoroughly. The past decade has seen tremendous improvement and growth in our district, and it's critical that any new leadership sees the great things happening in FUESD and continues to build on it. To that end, I would like to encourage the board to hear the voices of active FUESD parents, not just people who say they're parents. That's great. We're parents with our kids in these schools. We're invested in these schools. Those of us who make up the PTSAs, the ELACs, the lighthouse committees, the school site councils, the ones who are in the classroom. Those are the families and parents who will tell you what our schools need. They'll tell you that we have amazing teachers and staff, and that we want a superintendent who will keep us on that right path. We want our superintendent who will continue to focus on equity, making sure that every member of our vibrant school community, and it is very unique, And that's why equity is so important. And we want our children to continue to have access to top quality educational resources. I would particularly encourage the board to find candidates sensitive to the needs of our ELAC communities, as our English learners are some of our most vulnerable students with some of the most unique needs that any new administration must be aware of and enthusiastic about supporting. Please also remember the high rate of special education students that we have in our district, specifically because our district is so good at taking care of special education students. So any new leader in our district should be sensitive to that community's needs. To that end, I would like to invite all of the board to May Ellis on Tuesday, March 21st at 4 p.m. when we are hosting our bingo and books, Libros y Loteria night, which is in conjunction with our spring book fair. You'll be able to see firsthand how vibrant our FUESD schools are, especially when teachers, students, staff, and families all work together to celebrate our school communities. You will see how a new superintendent won't have to reinvent the wheel or look very far for engaged families. They will be inheriting a joyful and engaged community of parents and students. I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dale K.
Right, thank you. Of course, the topic is the hiring search firm for a superintendent. This should be a very last resort. It's not a good idea. We should definitely try and find somebody local. Local is always the best, somebody with moral values that likes our community. Just like the police, you always want local police. You don't want federal police. It's the same thing. We want local people. If it gets down to the point to where you wind up doing a search firm, hiring a search firm, it'll, as they said before, it'll be expensive. We've already lost $400,000. That's not good. And I guarantee you, I've been studying politics since the 80s, what's going on with this New World Order stuff. And the person, whoever is chosen, will be a woke progressive. I guarantee you, that's what we will wind up with. And this is being promoted all over the country, not just around here. In fact, this woke agenda is it's part of a much larger agenda. So no point in getting into all that, but anyway, we've seen, why is there a public school exit program? Because parents are fed up with what's going on. We're seeing more and more homeschooling. Why? Same thing. Parents are getting fed up with what they're seeing. This woke agenda, CRT, cancel culture, transgenderism being promoted, deliberate dumbing down of our kids. It's not good. We've just seen enough moral decline. So the kids need a good education, not an indoctrination. And so a search firm is just not the answer. I sure hope we'll find somebody local. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is it for that item.
After the meeting started.
Sorry, I don't have a card.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. It's on the same agenda item. I apologize in advance. I'm not as prepared as everybody else was. My name is Carrie. Good evening, guys. I just wanted to provide a little comment on the superintendent search. I learned that a community advisory committee for the last superintendent was created and formed. I've been talking to a lot of people within the community and stuff, and I learned that during the last selection process, a group was created with by the community, made up of the community. I don't know how the individuals were selected, but the more I learned about this, the more I got excited about it because it allowed the community to have input and kind of be involved with the process in the selection for the superintendent. The reason why I'm asking you guys to consider this and urge that you support it is because last time that this happened, my understanding and some of the information I've received, our last superintendent was not the top pick. And we know how that kind of turned out. By having a community like advisory committee put together, I feel like it would provide additional input to the board and kind of help with questions and screening the candidates that are finally selected through whatever firm you guys choose to go with, whether it be the county or something more on the local level and stuff. But I'm just recommending that the board consider putting out to the community, maybe through an application process or something like that, for the community to apply to be part of this interview board of candidates that have passed screening and have been selected to help you guys interview. And then they can provide feedback to you on what their thoughts and stuff are on the candidates that are proceeding forward, basically. Again, I feel like this would be a great opportunity for the board and all the things that you guys have been doing so far to continue to rebuild community trust and provide transparency. I think that this would be a great way to continue to build upon that. Trying to see what else I had. Again, I'm sorry, I was not as prepared as everybody else. A suggestion for this, maybe partnering with the paper too, to have them put something out, but please consider doing a community advisory committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As you recall, board, at our last meeting, we had Dr. Yolanda Rogers of the county office here to give a presentation on your options for a superintendent search, and she went over those options with you. And at your direction, I sought out the top 2 search firms to come and make presentations to you and provide proposals. So we have Mr. Ben Johnson from McPherson and Jacobson, who will be here to do a presentation. He has 15 minutes for his presentation. And then at the end of that, the board will have opportunity to ask questions of him. And then once he's finished, we'll have the other company come in and do the same. Mr. Johnson.
My name is Ben Johnson. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Heard already today how important this decision is. Not here to express the thoughts. Here by search. The search process is the most important. I'm gonna kind of slides are important, but I think covering the key points of the content questions are most important. For the CSBA, we're trying to CSBA children fears to make it part of the process. For instance, years ago, like for a couple of reasons. First of all, hiring the right search firm is put any district that is seriously concerned. Now I can do my Phil Donahue dating myself, right? All right, so let's, I apologize for my throat. I'm congested and dealing with this cold thing. But this is the most important thing that a board does is hiring your superintendent. Your community came out in the rain and weather, the temperatures out here and the rain to deal with this. But it is a community impacting decision, right? It doesn't just impact what happens in the district, it impacts your entire community. But it's the board's decision, right? It is the most important thing that a board does. We heard some comments about what's important to communities. Our firm is a nationwide search firm, but we are local. So on our team, Dr. Bowers and I would be your search consultants. Her background as a superintendent. Like you, I served on a school board in Alvord Unified in Riverside, California for 21 years. District 80A is about 22,000. I decided I was no longer going to serve on a school board and retired 6 years ago. And then a friend of mine who was on the county board asked me to run for election, and now I serve on the Riverside County Board as well. So the benefit for your firm, for your district, is you get a lens of not just a superintendent background, but a board background. So just like you, I've sat in those seats. I heard a comment today that someone talked about not having a first choice. I don't care if you use us or some other firm. If you are not all clapping your hands excited about the candidates that are brought forward, don't let anyone ever tell you to settle for a candidate, right? Because it is the most important, and great governance happens at this level, but that impacts what happens in the classroom. So we can talk about options if that doesn't happen. We spent a lot of time, and I'm going to go to our sustainability piece. So at 5 years, 85% of our candidates are still in place in those districts. What that means to you is the person has to have impact immediately, but they also have to be sustainable as well. And then 60% are still in place at 10 years and 45% at 15 years. The last few years with COVID, I will tell you those numbers have 3.2 to 4.6 years as the average tenure of superintendents. That number continues to drop. The number of candidates continues to drop. If you thought our work is putting an ad in a newspaper to get your candidates, you could do that yourself, right? That anybody here could do that, quite frankly. But we spend time working on your criteria at first. You develop your criteria initially, and we use that criteria to be intentional about searching for candidates that meet the unique needs of your community. My background is in healthcare. I used to drive here once a week to go to Fallbrook Community Hospital to see clients. And so every time I drive back here, I love the drive. I love the community. And it is unique. And so making sure that you're aware of that process and making sure that candidate fits with the community is important. I would disagree that local is not the only criteria to look for. You want someone that understands and is going to be connected and approachable and involved with your community. Someone can live here and not have any of those things that matter. So those pieces are important, but that person needs to be connected and involved as well. So this is what it's about, right? It's about the kids. We can talk about all the wonderful things. We can use all these big words and big terms, but it's all about students. It's all about what matters most. And I have 4 daughters. And so for me, that continues to impact me and my decisions of why we do what we do. We do not hire superintendents. We do not hire superintendents. They hire the superintendent. That is not our job. We don't represent superintendents. That's one of the reasons why CSBA picked us, is because we strictly work for boards. And that is a big difference, because we do not take candidates from one district and then move them to another district, and then 3 years later, take those candidates and move them to another district. We are very intentional about making sure that when you hire someone, that they stay here and they have an impact. And we are so confident in our process, we give a 2-year guarantee. If that superintendent leaves for any reason, we come back and do the search at no cost to the district. That's the cost for the search process. That includes everything. There's no hidden fees. There's no added value, additional, this is everything, including the search process. We also come back within 45 and 60 days and do a governance workshop with the board and the superintendent to set goals and objectives to make sure that superintendent is successful. We also match any price. So if anybody comes with a lower search fee, we will match that, no questions asked. This is our process. I'll cover this briefly because I'll leave time for questions. But the first piece, if you look at phase one, is what are the characteristics of your superintendent? You heard from people in the audience that talked about that piece, and being transparent and having the community involved is critical. They don't hire, but there is nothing wrong with elected officials getting information from the constituents we represent, because we all, that's our role, right? Is to represent here, take that feedback in, and use that information to make the best decision possible. We also have stakeholder input meetings. And by that, I mean, it's not just a town hall meeting where you invite people to come or something virtual. We do that too. We have separate stakeholder meetings with groups that the board identifies that are important. So for example, bargaining units, PTSA, ELAC, DLAC. We also recommend, guess what? Meet with students, because they have a voice too. And the students that set up here reinforce that. So we meet with students. We provide a boarded document of the things that are important to all those groups. Very detailed. We don't take anything out. We don't edit anything. We give it to the board to use. We also give it to the board to share with the candidates and also to share with the community. I think the next big piece is we take all the applications in. Once we receive the applications, we filter through the people that don't meet your criteria, because you're going to get a lot of people that are qualified, but they may not meet your criteria. And so we give the board a list. Let's say my gut is you'll probably get between 25 to 30 plus applicants. We would narrow that down to probably a list of 8 to 10. We would show the board who those candidates are. We would show you everybody, but we'll tell you the ones we didn't bring forward and why we brought the certain ones forward. And then we would recommend the board interview between 4 and 6 candidates. From that 4 to 6, the board would pick their new leader. And then, as we mentioned, the board presents that candidate to the community. And then at the end, like I said, the phase 5 is the guarantee, but also making sure that the board does a workshop about goals and objectives for that new leader. I'll address something that I typically don't, but it came up here. Someone mentioned people in the community interviewing. Some districts do a community panel between 8 and 12 people that the board is involved with selecting to interview, but not rank. They give strengths and potential weaknesses of candidates. They do not interview and tell the board who to pick. That's not anyone else's job except the board. And that's important because you can't win. That happens, right? So, but information can always be leveraged to a good thing. Let me see if there's anything else, because I want to leave time for questions. I think I covered all these. The average time to do a search effectively is probably 2 to 3 months. So if we started, let's say, after your next board, depending on you would approve the process, we would be able to have you a new leader in place by the first meeting in July. And then I'll stop talking because I can talk forever and see if there's questions from the board.
Yes, so you mentioned that you do a national search, is that right? How wide in it do you cast?
So we have 125 consultants across the country. Once we identify the criteria, we send information to all of our consultants. We also send information to every candidate in our database. But what the real work is, when we get your criteria, it's taking that list and going, who do I know? And who do my colleagues know that meet what you're talking about? I mean, I live in Riverside, so I know the county fairly well and know people locally, but also people on the national level as well. So it'd be really being thoughtful about what you identify, the challenges, the good things that are happening in this community, which there's a ton, and I don't think you're going to have an issue finding great candidates based on what I know about the community.
A two-part question.
Sure.
Mr. Johnson, thank you.
And Ben, please.
Very often, some of the best candidates, as I'm sure you've experienced, are people who aren't really looking. They're not on the
Yes,
market.
ma'am.
They're happy with their job, but you know they're really, really good. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
how you track cabinet level individuals at schools?
Well, that's what you want, right? You want people that aren't looking, that are doing great work, and they could be a superintendent, depending on the board's wishes. They could be an assistant superintendent. I'm really involved. I'm going to be in Sacramento too. So I mean, I think being involved and being connected is one thing, but I also reach out to my colleagues. I don't know everyone. So reaching out to the people that we have in our network, and because our network is so large, we're able to say, I know a person that's looking for this and this. Like I had a candidate recently that was thinking about a search, but the district was 30,000 students. And I'm like, you're not ready for 30,000 students yet. So being able to have that is the first thing. And I think the other thing too is just getting on the phone and calling people. And I mean, I call people, they say no, and then 2 months later, they're interested. So there's one right now I'm thinking of too that might work really well here. So I think it's really just putting in the time and effort to do that. And then there are things that you see that are happening in districts where you think the situation could be better for the candidate and the leader. And no disrespect, but the most important thing that candidates look at is, do you have a good board, right? Because that's part of the governance team. And I say there's nothing negative that happens in the classroom, but great stuff happens in the classroom when remarkable stuff happens at the governance table. And that's what superintendents want. They want a board that's going to be visionary and supportive, and they want a governance team of 6 people. And that's kind of what I look for too, and being on both sides of being a search consultant, also being a board member for so long. My network's pretty good.
Second question, if I may.
Sure.
So we've all run across candidates who are incredible at being interviewed.
Oh,
They look like rock stars. And then they get in the job and you're like, wait a minute, what happened to all the things that you said you could do?
Past performance is a great indicator of future performance, right? So if someone talks good games, so that's the first thing. Let me tell you 2 things. That the process that we try to develop as far as interviewing is not just a bunch of questions, because there are great people that know how to answer all those certain questions well. So there's other things that we do that I don't give away, because then everybody would use them. But there are things that we can do in an interview process to do that. But the reference checks is a big one, right? So we call everyone that someone gives us, right? So that's, let's say 3 people, and we take those 3 people, and then we go 3 deep, and then we go 3 more deep. So in the initial interview process, if someone's saying, well, you can't call this person, you can't call that person, that may be okay at the very beginning. But before I present someone to you, there's no one off limit, unless there's some situation that's really unique. But I'm going to look and see what you've done, not what you just said you've done. That to me is the best indicator, right? Of can they really do what they say they're going to do? And then when in the interview process, I talked about there's scenarios that we can do. There's other things we can break boards up in different groups that can help uncover those kind of things. Does that answer your question? Maybe a little bit.
Experience when you get references, there are people who you know are going to give you a positive.
Yeah, I don't stop there.
And if that person then gives you the next reference, they're not going to give you somebody who's going to say something bad about the candidate. They're going to give you someone who says
You are correct. So that, and then whoever else I want to call. So if someone says, call my previous supervisor, and then you're the sitting superintendent, I'm going to call your previous supervisor. I'm also going to call the board member. I'm going to call the guy in M&O that knows if you're kind when you step on campus. I'm going to call someone in facilities. That ability to do that. I'm going to even call vendors that I know that have worked with you and said, what kind of things have you done from a leadership standpoint? So really trying to not put in, and none of us are perfect, because We all have days, right? But it's really making sure that you understand that this person isn't just representing themselves, they're representing all of you, right? And it's important that that they do it well and that they are going to, I can't remember what the gentleman is, it said they're going to, gentleman right there said they're going to uphold the values of the community, right? Because the superintendent is not just the leader of the district. They are a leader in the community and they have to impact and represent all of that well, and not being perfect, but
That does answer the question. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
How often will we get updates on the candidates that?
How often do you want updates? It's your search. And I mean that seriously. I like to give, so what typically happens, maybe I can kind of give a high level. When I meet with the board, I kind of map out the timeline of what I think it's going to take. How long the position will be open, when we expect to close the position, when I'll present you what I call the short list of candidates, those candidates that are the 8 to 12 that you would look at to kind of determine who you want to interview. But in the interim, I'm going to give you some boards like weekly, some like by every 2 weeks. It really, you tell me. I think at least a weekly or bi-weekly up to say we've got, and the boards always freak out because you know, for the process, we only got 3 candidates. I'm like, everybody waits to the last minute, even screening. They always. So, but how many candidates do I think I have without who's applied? But I'll try to give you at least a kind of benchmark of all those things. And I will tell you, for example, if I think we may want to extend it for 2 weeks, right? I'd rather do that. And I just did that recently because they were being really aggressive in timelines and I know why they were, but I thought if we close this process now, we're not going to get the people we want. It happened during COVID. I did a search in the middle of COVID that was 75% virtual. And we had like 3 people apply. No, that's wrong. We had like 17 people apply. 3 people were qualified. And I just told the board, like, just open up for another month because you're going to end up either being really disappointed, which I don't want, or you're not going to get what you deserve. And we opened it back up and had 42 candidates for that search. So it's whatever you desire.
What would you qualify them for getting rejected?
Say that again.
Hold on, what would qualify for rejection?
You mean if I'm going through a candidate and they are so cool? Let me give you an example and maybe you can tell me if you're looking for like, if they apply for a job in the superintendent, 5,083 students roughly. And they've only been in a district of 200 students and they're an assistant superintendent. Probably not qualified in my opinion, right? You want someone, or if they've just been a principal and maybe not a principal superintendent. So those things that but you would tell me, like, because someone made a comment about unique candidates, and it's the board's decision. I think the board would decide what are the things, the characteristics you want, and then you would tell me what things are out of the realm of being qualified or not qualified. But district your size, complex, I would say someone that has cabinet level would be at least the bare minimum. I believe like recruiting should be a funnel, right? So you keep it open, right? As much as you can to bring people in. And then as we go through the process, then you kind of whittle it down smaller, but that allows us to see people because sometimes you do get unique candidates where you're like, wow, right? And somebody is a wow and you put them through the process. Because I've seen districts do just the opposite and have these really narrow defined criteria that really limit it so bad they're losing amazing people because they put criteria that's really not indicative of what makes great leaders. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So do you have different levels of service? And if so, what would they be?
We can break down our search process to whatever you want us to do or not do. That's a board decision. The figure that I gave you is for us to basically do everything. So you would be, if you wanted us to do that, we could, if you said you don't want us to do screening, we could take, but all that. Excuse me, all that's, I couldn't tell you what all those things would break down to right now. But we could customize. First of all, every search is unique. So we don't, thank you so much. So it's not cookie cutter, but our search process, as far as the complete search, is based on us doing everything. And I'll be candid, breaking that up into little pieces doesn't serve the board well, right? Because you take out screening, who's gonna screen candidates? Staff's gonna screen their boss's boss. It's just, it actually at times can cause more. Our network is so big, I think it's better that for the district, if you're gonna pay for the service, to make sure you get everything you can out of the service, because it is the most important decision that you make. I keep saying that because it's important, and it costs you far more in the long run to not do everything. And I'll say this again, if we bring you candidates that you're not all happy with, please don't settle, right? Don't ever. And I can say this because I've been in situations where I've seen boards do it, not with us. Well, not with me. Because I've been as a board member, I've seen that happen, and it doesn't do anything but hurt you in the long run. So everyone tells you that's all that's out there, that's all that. No, it just means the timing's off. But we can customize to whatever you want. I just give you my own rant. Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
How do you involve the community when you do the?
So there's a couple of ways. First of all, let's just talk general stakeholder feedback meeting, which I think it's great, right? Because this is who this is for. It's for the community and for the kids. And so we break up stakeholder groups by unique, I like to call it voice. So let's say the first two that I always recommend are, your CTA, CSEA, right? They would have, each one of their presidents would determine a group of who they want to represent them. I'd meet with each one of those groups individually. Maybe DLAC would be a group, ELAC would be a group, PTA would be a group. Then business community maybe could be one. If you have a foundation, community leaders could be another one. Students would be one. You tell us, district this size, I would probably guess between 8 to 10 community groups, and we could do those in person or we could do those virtually. They both work fairly well. Cabinet would be one, sorry, cabinet. And site leaders could be another one. So you would determine those groups. We would meet with all those groups individually. We ask the groups the 4 same questions. What's good about the community? What's good about the district? What should that person know? What are the challenges of the district? And what are the characteristics, traits, attributes you want in your next leader? And we ask those groups all the same questions. We provide a very detailed, by group and by comment, report of what they said. We ask in hard copy and digitally. We ask you to share it on your website, give it to the community, share it with your friends, put it on your webpage. That's the first way. We do all those things. Then we also have an online and in English and in Spanish. Any other languages that you would want? Those are the two.
I was gonna ask about Spanish, if you hold community meetings in Spanish.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. Un poquito, so it's not me. But we do it in English and in Spanish. In our online survey, we have in English and in Spanish as well. We keep that open usually for about 2 weeks. The same thing with those. And so, for example, one of my colleagues that I personally like at the meetings, we've done translations. I like to do it, just get one of my colleagues to do it in Spanish because I think it's just better connection, right? It just works better. So we do that, and then we provide all that information to the board. We want everyone's voices to be heard in the best and strongest way it can be heard. So that's our open stakeholder kind of community input. The other piece that we talked about briefly is if you wanted to do a community panel in the interview process. That's the other way you could get the community involved. But the big one I mentioned was the first one. Do you want to hear more about the community panel, or is that?
A little bit.
Sure. So I'm not going to give you my commentary on should you do it or not do it. Someone mentioned in the audience about facilitating trust. And I think we all could use a little more trust right now. We're all dealing with challenging, difficult times. If we all just did we're kind, that would be a good way to start. So I did rant again a little bit. But the community panels are usually about 12 people. We ask each board member to pick 2 people they want to serve on the panel. You can pick whoever you want. No one gets to question it. You get to pick 2 people. We ask each bargaining unit member to select 1 person, and then someone potentially from cabinet maybe, and then someone that is a respected leader in the community. That could have been a past board member, it could be a past superintendent, whatever the board, but that's a consensus decision from the board. Roughly 12 people on that community panel. And then the board comes up with questions. So the panel doesn't pick the questions. The board picks the questions. Usually what happens is the board has a list of questions first that they've developed, and then there's questions left over, and we give those questions that are left over to the panel to ask. But those questions are all around the criteria, right? So that's what we've done. We've done all the things are based on criteria. And so the panel asks those questions of the candidates. Usually what happens when we're doing a day of interviewing, we have candidate A in one room and candidate B in another room. Board's interviewing one candidate, panel's interviewing another candidate. They flip-flop, and that's usually how that process happens. The feedback that the panel gives to me, because I would be or my colleague would be facilitating that meeting, would be, what is the consensus of the group of the strengths of these candidates? So it avoids someone from hijacking what really happened during those sessions, right? So it's consensus of, we thought candidate demonstrated good ability to be an educational leader. We thought candidate communication skills were great. Whatever those top 3 to 5 things were, and if there's any areas of concern, if one person says no, they were this and that, it doesn't matter. Sorry, but we're not giving that to the board. It's really that consensus piece. And I think it's important to note everybody that's on the panel has to sign an agreement of confidentiality. These are people's careers. Some firms don't like this process because they say it reduces the number of candidates that apply for a position. My opinion is, if they don't want to participate in that process, they might be the wrong candidate if the board wants community panels. I think that I've done searches with both. I've never had a community panel violate that process in the time I've been doing this. It doesn't mean that someone may have at some point, but I've never seen it. And if I did, I tell you, because then I would not support it as much. But I think that if it's done in the right way and the board picks the right people, most people in the community recognize that they don't want to ruin someone's career by blabbing about who was interviewing, because that really could hurt somebody's career. I think in the situations that I can think about that stand on my mind right now, when people have used community panels, it has helped the board cement their decisions. And it's also helped the board or a couple of board members from being positional and thinking, wow, the community said this at this really high level, and this candidate over here doesn't meet that criteria. Maybe I should be listening more. So sometimes that input from the community just helps cement where the board's already headed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
So I know that you said that you have that the 19,800 is the final cost and no hidden fees. But I also understand that there's some I suppose some firms that charge for traveling fees for the candidates. So is that still part of that? Or is that?
So the candidate fees would be a board decision. That's not our fee. So if, that's a good question though. If there was a candidate that interviewed from Colorado, because that happens, right? If you wanted to see that candidate, that would be a board decision to determine if they wanted to pay that person's travel. I think if you're asking someone to get on a plane and fly, then the board should cover it, but that's not part of our fee. That's a candidate fee. Candidate cost, I should say, not a fee, cost. But my fee is the 15 freeway. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Switching, we'll get the other, we can discuss the process after, but these are both of them. Basic in a minute. She's gonna, oh, yeah, more water.
Thank you.
So now this is Leadership Associates. Dr. Peggy Lynch is representing them, as well as Rich Thome Chavez. So I turn it over to them for their presentation.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us here to speak to you tonight about our search services. My name is Rich Thome Chavez, and I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I was the superintendent of South Bay School District, the superintendent of Cardiff by the Sea, that one looking at the ocean there. And I was also the assistant superintendent of human resources at San Diego County Office of Education for 5 years. Prior to that, I was in Capistrano Unified, and in Capistrano Unified, I went up the ladder from principal in all the different areas of Capistrano, the kind of the one where we had a lot of English learners, a lot of immigrants at the time from Vietnam, and then in a lot of course, Spanish-speaking immigrants as well. And then I went on to be principal in Laguna Niguel, which was an entirely different community. And then I ended up, at the end of the day, in charge of 35 elementary schools in Capistrano Unified as the assistant superintendent. Following that, I went to Cardiff and then on to South Bay and on to the County Office of Ed. I've been with Leadership Associates since 2006, and Dr. Lynch and I are the veterans of the firm. I've done a couple of hundred board workshops between us, not all together, but counting all of them that we've done. So we've been at it for a long time, since before 2009, I was 2006. Dr. Lynch was the superintendent of Brea Olinda School District after serving in Tustin School District, and then on to San Dieguito School District to be the superintendent there, long before they had problems. And unfortunately, they've had a few. But what we would like to tonight is kind of go over our search process and give you plenty of time to ask us questions. We were going to do a PowerPoint, but we figured that's going to be pretty distracting. So we're not going to do that. So let me begin by telling you that we are 2 of 14 partners. And of the 14 partners, they go from Northern California up to Eureka. And Dr. Lynch and I are the San Diego crew. We do a lot of searches and work down here in San Diego, as well as Orange County. So what that does for us is it gives us a tremendously broad network. And that broad network allows us to recruit because we know people at county offices and our partners know people. We will always be the leads and always be in touch with the board of trustees. But what we do is say, you know, we got a great job here, Fallbrook Elementary School District. And do you have anybody that you think is great? So we recruit that way. We also recruit, obviously, with advertisements in EdCal and EdJoin, put it all out there as much as we can. But moreover, we recruit and we recruit and we recruit. What most of the boards hire us for is our ability to recruit, do background checks, and do intensive community input so that the board hears the opinions of everybody in your district. So one of the things that, you know, I'm proud of, I'm a native Spanish speaker. So I know you have, out of the 4,000, 3,000, almost 5,000, a little over 3,000 Latino and or Hispanic, however they want to name themselves. I was born of Mexican parents from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, and never lost the language. So I'm good with it. I used it a lot down in South Bay, not much in Cardiff, just totally different communities. By the way, the South Bay I was superintendent of is at the border. You've got San Isidro, Chula Vista, and South Bay, which is just below the bay. So again, that's one of the things we do very well. Our networks allow us to do a lot of recruitment, and then we spend a ton of time with background checking. We also do an online survey, which gets to those people that have to get over and get on the freeway and go to work. We get hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 responses, and we put that survey with your permission on your website. People that can't come to a meeting or get on a Zoom with us will be able to fill out a form, which is really very, very informative. You get it in the form of graphs and all that information. And there's a kind of a free form section, which is kind of a great needs assessment of the district because people respond and give you their comments about the school district. So with that, what I'd like to do is have Dr. Lynch present the process itself, and then I'll go over the timeline. And I think we're going to be at 15 minutes right about then.
Thanks, Rich. So if you have your proposal, you can see this part, and I just want to kind of take us through that. And a couple of other pieces to us. We have an executive assistant. We have two executive assistants actually who work directly with your executive assistant in terms of all the materials, all the preparation for including language you put on agendas, the survey results, how we do all that. And we work really closely with our executive assistants. And that's been a real asset to us. And both of them are former superintendent secretaries and have been through searches. So they know what it's like for Elaine to try and do all that. So they're great help. So I just want to take you a little bit through the process itself. We have phases. Phase one is that initial meeting with the board. That's like one of the most important meetings for us. That's a chance to hear from you. What do you want in the new superintendent? What should they be like? What should their experiences be like? Any of those kinds of things. We talk about what are the strengths of the district, what are the challenges for the district. So we get a good profile from you first because it's your search. It's not our search, it's yours. We have to work for you to do your search. And so that's really important to us. During that meeting, we talk also about the timeline and refine that. So we make sure we're meeting your timeline, the parts where you need to be present, the parts where we're going to be present, and do work through all of that. We talk about the online survey, get that ready. We work with your tech staff to get that online so people can access it all over. That's a time when your district probably the whole input part is really kind of the busiest time for your executive assistant and for your staff just to get that organized. But we have templates of all of it, so we can give you that to set it up. So that second phase is really all the input. We've heard from you. Now we want to hear from everybody else. That's your staff, your teachers association, your classified association, your parents, your other organizations, community groups you work with. We go through that whole list in the first meeting to tell us who we need to talk to. So we're real clear about the groups we're going to be talking to. That's a big part of it. That's also when we get ready to put the online survey up. So that's ready to go. Your staff needs to put out the blast, if you will, to say the online survey is available. Can you, you can access it by doing this, but that's on your site. And then we get all the data. The third thing is the position description. Once we've heard all the input, and we've done the surveys, we get sort of those characteristics and qualities that people are really looking for across the district that sort of rise to the top, if you will. They're the ones that keep coming up. We need somebody who's a good communicator. We need somebody who's this, and this, has an educational background, has been in the classroom, whatever it might be. And from that, we write a position description. It goes on our website, it goes on your website. And that's for candidates who want to read about the district, want to read about what you're looking for, so they can see if they're a good match. Because really this comes down to what's a good match for us at the time we are in. So that whole part takes place. You'll get a copy of it to review before we post it, so that you'll know what's going on. Then the whole advertising, recruiting, reference checking. I just am finishing an assistant superintendent search up in Central Coast. I spent all last week reference checking, literally all last week reference checking, and over the weekend. It's the biggest part of the job. We think it's one of the most important. We don't want you surprised. We don't want to be surprised. It's the Googling, the search stuff we do, plus all the reference checking. And we do talk with all of our partners every 2 weeks. So we can also sort of pick their brain, if you will, about candidates that they've applied. We want to know more about them if we haven't met them directly, but somebody in our firm may have. Then after that is the selection of your finalists. So in between the time it closes and our reference checking, we'll have the next thing, it'll be a meeting with all of you. That's a closed session meeting to review all the people who've applied. Prior to that meeting, you will have been given a portal, an access to a portal on our website of all the people who have applied. So you will have an opportunity to review all of them. Now, some of them, we will have done reference checking and find that maybe there's reason why you might not want to interview them. And we won't be able to tell you that until we're in closed session. Okay, that's the time when we're going to go over all of those, but you'll have a chance to see everybody's. We think that's really important. We also then have the interviews, the final interviews. Rich and I sit in on those. We actually go through questions ahead of time at that first, where you pick the candidates you want to interview. We'll go over sample questions. You'll determine what you want to ask. We'll set up the schedule. Typically, it's at least a day long. Sometimes people go a day and a half. It really depends on how you want to work that schedule. And then the last part is really the validation. If you want to go to the person you choose to their district for a validation to make sure all you heard is true, should be, hopefully we've done everything right. And the contract part, you have to negotiate the contract. We will have asked the candidates ahead of time what they're looking for in the contract. So we'll be able to tell you that the day of the interview. So you'll know what salary they're looking for, what term of contract, any of those other kinds of things that might be part of it. Usually the attorneys for the districts has prepared a fill in the blank, if you will, template of what the contract might look like so that we can help you get to that point. We're not lawyers, so we don't do the negotiations, but we do tell you what they're looking for, and you can come to a term of, yes, we agree with this. They take the language and write the whole thing up. And then the board has to approve the contract in a public meeting, a regularly scheduled public meeting. Can't have a special meeting, has to be a regularly scheduled meeting. So that's a very quick overview of a few months worth of work. So, and I always tell people I am from New Jersey, so I do talk fast. So I'm going to let Rich kind of explain sort of the timeline. And this is a draft timeline in your book, in your packet. So you can take a look at that and then see what you think.
Thank you much. A couple of the things I wanted to mention are that we do now about 67% of the searches in California, not the two of us, but the whole firm. And quite often we're chosen because of our track record since 1996. But we've also been employed after other firms are hired and things don't go the way the board wants them. So we've done a lot of that, come back in and get it back on track. We're here, we're always here 24/7. So if any of you have any questions or email us or whatever, we could be here. We both live in South San Clemente, by the way. So I am about somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 minutes or so, 7 minutes from San Onofre Elementary, because I live right next to the San Diego border, the San Diego Orange County border. So that's one thing that we do. You know, as Peggy mentioned, we want to make sure you don't have to work hard. You don't have any surprises, that if you have any question, anytime, you call us and we'll let you know whatever the information is that you need. You know, we're really open. We take this really personally. I've done a lot of work in Fallbrook since Jennifer Jeffries was here many years ago. Yeah, I don't know what Jennifer's doing. I think a health organization, correct? But and followed all of them, Mike Choate and everybody, all the way up to except the last one, not so much. And Bill Banning. Yeah, could have been. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so we're here, and the one thing we want to let you know is the reason that we talk about the contract parameters and don't make you go into negotiations, because we don't want any surprises for you. You're going to tell us what you want to pay the person, whether you want to give them a 1 year, I'm sorry, 3 year, 4 year contract, whatever you want to do. And by the way, you saw in our proposal, we're going to give you a guarantee of 2 years. So if something happens and the superintendent doesn't work out, then we're here to come back and do it again at no cost. We don't even have mileage that's worth, the cost. So we'll just start all over and do it again. But we've had good fortune to be with Leadership Associates, good fortune to be in San Diego where we started with Harry Weinberg, who was then county superintendent. And so we're eager to serve you in any way that we can. And I think it's time for questions.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Lundeen. I will ask you the same question I asked the previous firm. And that is, in my experience, and I'm sure you've seen it too, some of the very best candidates are people who are not actively searching for a position.
Yeah.
How do you find those folks?
We tap them on the shoulder. We're proud of the fact that we recruit, and we recruit sitting superintendents. This is a great district, and the direction the new board's going in is just really, I'm excited about it, just to reading about all the changes and where y'all are going. And I think I put that in the proposal, but very excited about that. So we will be recruiting all over the place, certainly even out of state candidates, although it's tough sometimes for them to find a home they can afford here if they live in Texas or somewhere or Nevada. And also they've got to spend a lot of time to catch up with California ed code, collective bargaining if they're from Texas, because some of these states are right to work states and they don't have unions. But so that sometimes the out of state doesn't work as well. But we have recruited many. Go ahead.
And I just want to say, though, we do not recruit people we've placed. So just know that we don't go after people. Now they can call us if they say that's a job I'm interested in, and I've been here 5 years and I'd like to look at that. That's a different story, but we don't go tap somebody on the shoulder that we've actually placed because we think that's not appropriate. So we try to make sure, but our website is checked by a lot of people all the time and from all over the country. So we really do have a pull for people. I'm doing this assistant superintendent search and I have 3 people from out of state who want this job. So, I think there's certainly a broad look, but we're very careful to make sure we don't recruit somebody we've done a search for.
Could you say how often you've identified cabinet level members versus superintendents who've been in the position?
The vast majority of superintendents, vast majority. So
It's also, the size of your district might draw some really strong assistant superintendents. It could, and I mean, all of us who were assistant superintendents had to finally get a superintendency. So, it certainly can work. I mean, I think that what we'll get a broad group, I think. I mean, I have people who apply for high school principals. They probably might not be quite ready for that, but maybe, could be. But we do have and the other thing is, We're all involved in leadership development around the state in different ways. I do superintendent networks with 2 different districts, 2 different areas, Central Coast and Desert. And we meet superintendents and assistant superintendents from all over. So they know us, not just because of searches, but because of the other work. And we think that's important that we've had and that we've had a chance to connect with people from all over. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to mention one other thing about our firm, waiting for the next question. That is that some of the things that you're dealing with here were identically what I dealt with in South Bay. A degree of transiency, getting our EL kids up to speed at grade level, working hard at that, making sure that at the same time we were moving forward with STEM. I saw in one of the rooms here, you have posters for STEM for girls. Congratulations. That is so great. I do a lot of work in that area as well, STEM. It is so important for kids these days. All you have to do is open the Times and you'll see that 70% registered Times, Union, San Diego Union, Tribune, about 70% require some degree of science, technology, engineering, or math. That's where our kids are going to be. And so we're so proud of you for doing that. It's really very powerful stuff. Ready for the next question, sorry.
That's the same question that was asked as to how do you involve the community? What is your process of like community and staff process?
Well, we're going to, number one, identify groups in the community that you're going to give us. You're going to tell us in our first meeting who you definitely want us to talk to. Obviously, it's going to be the classified employees, classified leadership, confidential employees, certificated leadership, certificated employees outside of the leadership, and then any group that's important to you, if it's a service club or anything like that, PTAs, PTOs, those people, the city people as well. And the number of the 3,000, I don't know how many are non-English speaking, but I do that. I go out and whatever it takes, I go to DLAX, I Zoom with DLAX so that everybody has a chance to say, this is what we want. And they're very comfortable with that and they give us what they want. And they're really, it's amazing because every parent wants the same thing, right? Every parent wants a good, safe, strong school for their children. So by getting that input, we hear a lot of that, as well as want somebody that's open, that I can call, that I can contact, not necessarily open door policy, but open to people, approachable, somebody that's got experience doing this kind of a job. Many other factors, strong in budget, strong in instruction, because you are on fire with what you've done with instruction, and it's gonna keep going.
And the survey is in multiple languages. So the survey is in English, it can be in Spanish, we have Vietnamese, we have Mandarin, I just did one in Tagalog. So we have a variety of languages available. So that's another way of outreach to really get that input. We use your principals too to get the word out to parents and to community. And your teachers association, your classified association help communicate to their members to use the survey. So I'm doing one in ABC Unified. It's a fairly good sized district in LA County. We've had almost 1,500 responses to the survey. So we get a lot of feedback. As you probably know, people don't, especially after COVID, people would rather Zoom or not go to meetings very much. They can access it different ways. The survey has become a very popular and very really significant way, because not only does it show you graphs of what people are thinking, there's tons of comments they can write. So you have, I think my document with this one in ABC is like 60 pages long of comments and input. That's a lot, but it's also a good analysis of where are we in the view of those people out there? Where are we? How are we doing?
And that data, by the way, is organized and you'll get graphs. So it will show what percentage of parents want a strong fiscal leader, what percentage of parents would prefer a strong instructional leader, experience as a superintendent. All those kinds of things come out in graphs. So you'll see that it's just not a bunch of data. And we'll present that as well as everything that we've heard in our own face-to-face meetings. And we're excited if you do choose us, that we're so close here, we can make all kinds of things work. We don't have to do all Zoom. We know San Diego. As I said, I was head of HR for 5 years at the county office. Probably knew all of your superintendents, except for not so much the last superintendent, but everyone before that. And you know, we're locals. Let's put it that way. Is what I'm trying to say. And I think we could form a strong team to find the best and brightest. And you don't have to worry about background. You know, we've never had a lousy background. We've never brought someone to the board that had a poor background, because, you know, with the coconut wireless throughout California, that would be all over every district in about 2 days. So we've never had that happen, and we're very fortunate that that's not happened. Question? Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked the other. How do you keep us informed with the updates on, and how often for the candidates that you get?
Yeah, I will send you weekly updates because I love doing that, and it will tell you exactly where we are. The worst possible thing is for you to hire consultants and you don't hear from them. So, and we know that because we've done this so often, but so you'll get weekly updates. I did the last district that I did. We had every Friday, you'd get an update. So the board would have time on the weekend to see what that update was and forward any questions or concerns that you might have. So you'll get that in the form of an email.
So, you have a list, and I don't know if that works or not, but do you have a list of the superintendents that you've placed, that we would be able to maybe search and see how they've worked out, how long they've stayed and stuff?
Sure. Yeah, we do. You go.
We have a really high percentage of folks who stay at least 5 years. So that's something we look for. Somebody who's going to, you don't want somebody who's here tomorrow and here today and gone tomorrow kind of thing, right? So, but we could provide a list of people we've done searches. I think some of them, if you look in the proposal, there's a list of all the districts we've done. And some of them, I'm doing Santa Monica, Malibu for the 3rd time. I think they think I live there now, but I don't. But this is my 3rd time doing it. So you can read the whole list of everybody that we've done searches for over those years. So
Maybe to get at that answer, we're maybe looking for a percentage
of
how many stay the 5 years, so to speak.
Yeah, 85% is it's about 85% that do 5 years or more. And we're proud of that, because one of the things that, I don't know if any of you are recruiters for any type of company, but you really have to kind of look way beyond the obvious. If you see somebody that was 2 years here, 3 years here, 2 years here, 1 year here, they're climbing a ladder, right? They're trying to get more pay, get another reference district, and move forward. So we really, you're going to hear all of that when we talk about every candidate that applied. And if there's somebody that looks red hot, great, why not? But if that person is a job jumper, we're going to let you know about that, because we don't want you to hire someone that is going to look for more money and try and get Capistrano Unified in 5 years or something. We don't want that at all. We want you to. It takes a long time to make changes in a school district. And you want to have people understand, be part of the team, and spend at least that time, if not more, to really get the changes done that the board wants over that period of time. Because as you know, the first years, people get to know everybody, learn what the district's all about. Second year, they get to work. And there was a Harvard study done that by the 3rd year, if the board's not happy with them before the board takes action, they seek other employment. So it is, we picked that out very, very quickly. Thank you.
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
What do you think is the best way for a board to work through this process? Has there been a need to form special committees for any reason that you've seen? What's been the best? Is there?
You know, it really, to me, this is just a person, having done this since 2009. One of the things about this, in particular, you have some new board members, right? This is a really good opportunity for you to come together as a governance team, because you're picking the one person you hire. And so how you work together and we'll help you with that. That's part of our role, is to help you come together as a team and talk about what you're really looking for. So that when you make this decision, this is a person you're going to spend a lot of time with. My husband used to say, I think you see them more than me. Probably true some days. So we want to be sure that this is a good match for you and for them, that they feel comfortable. So we spend a lot of time making sure you are informed, but when you come together on those meetings, the first one, the meeting where you pick the candidates, plus you're going to get the updates and then the actual interviews, that's a chance for you to kind of really work together in ways probably, especially since some of you are new, you haven't done yet. And it is the biggest hire you have.
It is.
It's the most important one you do.
And Mr. Favela, as far as us interfacing with you, you just let us know when and we'll be here. Because we've had some boards that say, well, we were not really sure about this part of the process. You know, we found that we didn't finish our conversation. And that is the advantage to us being so close. That we know the area, we know who's been here in terms of superintendent, and we can meet at any time that you need. Obviously, we have schedules too, but we work it out.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your
We
time.
really appreciate your time, and we hope for the best, but it's up to you. Thank you. Rained hard a little bit ago, but then it slowed down. Thanks for being here, folks. Appreciate it. Can I give the board president and maybe you my card? In case you have any questions or concerns, complaints, questions.
No worries, no worries. She's the font of all information. She's the person we go to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
There's a grocery list on the back of any of those cards.
Thank you.
Is the public able to speak to or just us?
That time or before. So just for you all for this. You're
No,
ready to say something.
This is,
Well, we're waiting for him to leave. That's what we're waiting for.
like I said, this is the most important test that we have as a board, so. We have to make a decision on this, right?
So I was saying this is open for discussion amongst the board. It was an information item. Next steps would be for us to, and when I say us, this is yours, but us, Elaine and us, to prepare the agenda that would have the contract or proposal, and that's when the action would take place for the selection. So we anticipate that would be at our next regular board meeting, March 13th. Where there would be an action item to approve the selected firm or the direction that you want to go. But this is the opportunity for you as a board to discuss, and it's also to be done in a public meeting. The only time that it's a closed session is when you're actually discussing candidates. So that's why the public has the opportunity to comment, which they did. We appreciate that.
Or does it have to be? If it's an agenda item, it's just a parliament.
Not during, no.
No.
But if you look at our, well, we're not talking about ed code, we're talking about board policies. And for this board, as former president, no, it's not, because you are given the opportunity to provide input at the appropriate point in the meeting. This is not a town hall. There are times when we will have a town hall. It's a business meeting of the board of directors. So you don't need to, because there will be times for you to comment during the process, and we will welcome that. And there will be the next board meeting when you can come.
Okay, so we'll take it under consideration, and I definitely appreciate Ms. Lindian's guidance because she's obviously sat here, so I defer to her and appreciate when she's able to support. We'll be happy to look into it, and we'll let you know.
I think they did a great job. They provided us with a lot of information. I was interested and impressed that they had a lot of similarity in their processes and procedures. Their firms are different, which is interesting. One of them, Leadership Associates, has its top people are all partners. So there's that kind of buy-in and high level. The other is more consultant based. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. It's just interesting that they're different. I'm glad we got the written proposals. Elaine was kind enough to print out the proposal for me, and I'm going to go through and kind of highlight what some of the changes or the differences are between them and how much they correlate to what we're looking for. I think that the timing of this search is a real challenge, because as I've learned from the district, that the way it works when recruiting is done is it's done like in January, because then people serve their term out till the end of the school year in June and start again, but we're past January. So I appreciate the fact that they are talking about being, able and willing to try and meet that timeline so we can have a new hire start on July 1. And I also know, and they corroborate, that there have been a lot of superintendents leaving positions. So it's a challenge to find really good folks. But I think this district is an amazing district. It's an amazing community. I do live here. I was going to say, I want to live here. And so I think that is important. We have a lot that we can present to candidates. The excellence of our staff and team, the involvement of parents and community, this town of Fallbrook. So I think with the right team helping us, the right executive search firm, and they recognize, I think, that all of us have either jobs or family commitments. So they're really willing to take on that process. And I was really interested in how much experience they had, because that matters. And the bilingualism, I think, matters. Very, very important that we get input from our Latinx community.
Definitely, we have quite a few parent leaders, or Spanish speakers that need to be involved. And along with all the other parent leaders and staff as well.
So am I understanding at the next board meeting, Dr. McCray, we will have this on the agenda. We'll make a decision from that point. It looks like the next step is that meeting with the board, laying out sort of what the goals are, what kind of qualifications we're looking for, stakeholder groups, and that starts the whole input process. Exciting. It's really exciting. I'm glad that the online survey has such a good response. Because I think that there, as we've noted in this meeting, people have said it's sometimes hard to get to a meeting, but if you can just do it at home online and provide detailed input, that's really valuable to us as board members. So thanks for putting this all together for us today.
I want to thank you all for your excellent questions. I deferred my time to all of you. I knew they only had about 15 minutes, so I wanted to let you all ask your questions of them. And I will pose questions at some future time, so not to take up what little time that they have, but they were excellent questions. And I think both firms presented a very good picture and background of what they do. Like you said, Ms. Lindy, they were very diverse, but I think they both have excellent qualifications and excellent strengths. Great. Comments, questions, essentially? All right, we will now move to number 2, action 2023 CSBA Delegate Assembly Election. It is recommended the governing board vote for no more than 7 candidates for the 2023 CSBA Delegate Assembly. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to postpone to the March 13th agenda.
I move for a motion to postpone to the March 13th board meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. And at this time, will there be any questions or any further discussion?
My only question is, does that meet the timeline for whatever it's needed for?
Wants to be postmarked by March 15th, so we'll just need to make sure we
We
get
can do
it
that.
in. Elaine and I will make sure we get it in the mail, postmarked by that date.
Thank you.
Am I the only one that's confused on this voting for this?
I mean, because we don't know the candidates.
We don't know them, and then I had asked, they say to pick 7, but only 1 board. So what does that mean?
One board or one vote?
It says to pick 7 candidates, but only per 1 board member.
No, for one board, I think.
So
The entire board,
collectively,
it
the
becomes a-
board will
we
come to
reach a
consensus.
decision on the 7.
So we
question.
decide, together we decide on.
Exactly.
Good
Okay,
question.
that makes sense now. It
And I
didn't
tried
make
to
sense.
email it back to you, but
Hand delivered in.
it didn't.
So,
But no, so collectively, the board will decide via vote, how they will, there would be one ballot that be submitted on behalf of
Okay,
our board.
that's what I was wondering.
Okay, so at this time I'll ask for the vote. Ms. Sabal?
Aye.
Ms. Lundin? Aye. Mr. Favela?
Aye.
Ms. McBride? Aye. And I vote aye as well, so motion passes, and we will move item to the next board meeting. Now we will move to item number 3, first read, board policy 5145.12, search and seizure.
I make a motion that we approve first reading of, oh no, it's first reading, not an action item. Never mind. Motion.
Now we will move to item number 4, which is an action item, second reading, board policy 6163.21, animals at school. It is recommended the governing board approve board policy 6163.21, animals at school. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
And do I have a second? Okay, thank you. Discussion or debate? Questions? Yeah, we'll call for the vote. Ms. McBride. Aye. Mr. Favela.
Aye.
Ms. Lundin. Aye. Mr. Ball. Aye. And I will vote aye as well. So that motion passes as well. And we all get to look forward to going to finish it off. We can do that. And our next action item, resolution number 11-22/23, authorizing projects and filing of applications for funding under the California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program. It is recommended the governing board adopt resolution number 11-23/23, authorizing projects and filing of applications for funding under the California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program. Do I have a motion?
A motion approved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion, questions?
This would, we're looking at Live Oak Elementary, right, for this grant, yeah.
It meets the needs with the most eligibility because Live Oak was originally built as a 4th through 6th grade school without the kindergarten rooms. So this grant is that we're looking to apply for is a 75% state funded grant, meaning the state would give us 75% and the district provides the other 25%, which is great. There's not a lot of grants like that out there. And what it would do is there are Title V requirements for what a kindergarten, transitional kindergarten or preschool needs to have. I think we talked about the visual and the accessibility of restrooms and play areas and eating areas and parent pickup. So this would help with making Live Oak have those same facilities that some of our other schools have as well.
Does that in any way affect the Citro development? The connection with the Bonsall school?
No, we still have our kindergartners there and they're okay in the classrooms they're in. It's just any new buildings that would come online have to be Title V compliant. So, we have whichever students we have from that area already that are there in kindergarten, so that it wouldn't impact our ability there.
All right, seeing no further questions, I will call for the vote. Ms. Ball? Aye. Ms. Lundin?
Aye.
Mr. Favela?
Aye.
Ms. McBride? And I will vote aye as well. Motion passes. And we will move to section 5, educational services, information workshop and conference attendance. And we will move to item 6, consent agenda. It is recommended the governing board approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion?
That my grenade is gonna have a field trip to Petco Park. That's exciting.
And might I
Good for
mention in that Dr. Curcio is responsible for securing donations of about $5,000 so that we can do this. It's an expensive opportunity, I'll say, but with the migrant ed funding being just a little over $2,000. So kudos to her for going out there, pounding the pavement and getting $5,000 from a community member, I believe in San Diego, or business owner in San Diego, but want to acknowledge her work on that.
Does the board, is it appropriate for the board to issue a commendation or something for the donor who underwrote the event, kind of as a way to say thank you for?
So the donations come to the board and, and so it will be coming to the board. And there's a letter after the board approves it that actually comes out of our office, thanking them and acknowledging them. Now, if the board chose to do something in it, additionally, that would be fine. And we could either coordinate sending it at the time we send the letter. But we do, just so everyone knows, we do send something to all that donate so that they know that we accepted their donation.
I mean, just a thought, I think we could individually sign the letter maybe at the next board meeting. It'd be nice to have all different signatures. And maybe, you have those cute little things you gave to our.
Made those students.
Did you?
I know, and
Okay.
when you sign with your beautiful signature, we're all gonna have to, do ours.
And just maybe do a gratitude thing, as a previous fundraiser, people, the most important thing in fundraising is to thank people. Because their gift today may also be a gift down the road. And that's pretty amazing gift in terms of what it's allowing us to do. So it's from one source.
Is there a detail of what it all includes?
It was in the update, or in the information that I sent that has what the package includes, what the price includes, and what the students will actually be doing and learning.
All right, so I'll call for the vote. Ms. McBride?
Aye.
Mr. Favela?
Aye.
Ms. Lundin?
Aye.
Mr. Ball? Aye, and I vote aye as well. The motion passes. And I believe this where we have one comment left. I need a little.
Item number 7, Tara Jenkins.
I thought I was set up with my. I'm going to speak really quick. First, I was disappointed by what one of the parents commented, saying only active parents that was not very, should be able to participate in the committees helping you to pick superintendents. That was not very inclusive or equitable towards working parents who long to be as blessed as those that have the time to volunteer at schools and be in PTAs. And now when we do have time in the evenings after work, you want to exclude us. No, she's gone. That seems very hypocritical, not equitable or inclusive at all. One of the things I wanted to add to the agenda, which I spoke about earlier, was to take a vote next meeting or two, whenever you can fit it in, on virtual and written comments, and also let parents ask questions after presentation. This helps us feel more involved in what are the most important choices you can make for our children. You know, I know you guys love our children, but they're ours first. And because we are entrusting you, I can't think of a more important thing I can entrust you with is my child, their mind and their body. And that's why I push back so much. I'm not trying to be rude. But there's nothing else in this world I can trust anybody with more. And I think all of us parents feel that way. And we want a superintendent who respects that and respects parent choice. Also, communities need to be able to, I said ask presenter questions after they finished, and I shared with you about the Brown Act. I believe that it's beneficial for the board to know that, to know things we might ask that you just didn't think of. You probably would have asked if you thought of it. We're here to work together as a team and help you, and you're here to represent us, and we appreciate that because we know it takes a lot of time. I would prefer you find a qualified candidate that doesn't have to read about our district. I heard them say that. I didn't. Also, I wanted to let you know, Lakeside only spent around $5,000 for a consultant to do what the firms told you they were going to do. And I was told that they got the superintendent they wanted. They've had him for a couple of years, really like him. So another thing to put on your agenda, maybe next meeting or two, is to, before you take a vote on search firms, is to maybe interview some consultants, because they might be $5,000 versus $20,000. They have, and Lakeside also, just so you know, has about the same number of kids and started their superintendent around 170,000, plus 50,000 in benefits, give or take. A good candidate will be about the kids, not about the money. And again, I keep stressing local because I think you can find a qualified local. And I hope you start there first. If you can't, then I understand going out to the state and the nation. And just so you know, you always have the right to extend my time. You don't have to be so legalistic about it. That builds good stuff with the community when you do that.
So we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm gonna make the motion to adjourn. All right, so motion to adjourn at 8:11.